talks, nobody talks, nobody talks shidduchim.
This is the Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast.
Hey, Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast crew. It's Isaac. June. It's about mid-June 2022 now. I want to take you back to an episode I recorded about 8 months ago, back in November of 2021. And, this is episode 72, a long-distance fairy tale. Meeting on social media, try to get back together. How does long-distance relationships really work? So allow me to be vulnerable, open up, and take a listen.
Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast. Oh, got me 10 feet off the ground, mixing it up.
I'm hearing what you say, but I just can't make the sound. Tell me that you need me.
Everyone, thanks for joining in on another episode, Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast. I want to take you back. The year was 2019. Avery and I started this podcast for many reasons, and we'll do more of an episode on that sometime. But we started this podcast, at the end of the day, really just to help other people get through it and create this community and give people a good laugh, give people a good cry, let them know that they're not alone in this new world of shidduchim where we are today. When we started the podcast, we worked very hard in the beginning to make sure as many people knew about it, to make sure people were aware of it. We spent a lot of time on the content and everything, but in terms of the marketing, we blasted this thing out to so many people all over the place. And I have to tell you that I knew it would be a success. I knew it would do well, and I would just be happy with that. But I ended up getting a lot more than what I had bargained for. And while we were marketing this podcast, a young lady stumbled into my life, and we ended up going out. I'm on Instagram one day, and there's this, I'm following a Drake and Josh forum. I think that's, yeah. And I see a name, like a very, like a Jewish name that was pretty clear. They were Jewish. And I was like, I recognize this name from somewhere. And so I switched over to the Nobody Talks Shidduchim Instagram, and I see like, oh my God, I've been messaging this girl a little bit. And I'm like, yo, Drake and Josh, she's on the, she's messaging us. I'm like, let me check her out. And I check her out, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to go out with this girl. She looks awesome. And, I asked her, I'm like, hey, by the way, are you dating? Like, who are you? So we, and before you knew it, like, we were dating each other. I was going out. I was like, literally, it's one of a few times that I literally saw a girl and I said, I'm going out with her, and this is going to be serious. And that's what happened. We're going to call her T. That's what happened with T. It started over text. We were messaging each other, and then it went to voice notes, and then we were FaceTiming, and before you know it, like, we were actually dating. We basically start doing Jewish geography, just checking each other out, like making sure we're normal after we're both like slipping into each other's direct messages, the DMs. And it turns out that she actually lives right across the street from my cousins in Israel. So I was like, oh man, I mean, like, you live in Israel. Like, I didn't expect anything like that. But at the same time, hey, it's awesome. Like, I'm a real person. We're vetted. There was a long distance aspect to this because T did live in Israel, and that was quite the challenge for both of us. for both of us that really played out in the relationship that we were trying to build, because most of our dates wasn't going, it wasn't just us going to the park. Like, most of our dates were like over WhatsApp, because going to Israel and that, and like she lived in Israel, like that distance is very long. It's interesting, like long distance relationships. I'm not sure I have the best I'm not sure I know the exact advice for, but I can definitely assure you it's possible. It's possible, it's doable, because I've dated so many girls. I have been in shidduchim for so long, and I promise you, it is real. It is real, and it's probably more real than anything else, because you put the BS aside and you actually get to know somebody from a vulnerable, walls down perspective, because you don't have like what to work with off of, let's say, someone's their persona, how they're carrying themselves. You're not seeing those facial, the facials, like that in person. How are they handling it? And for the bad ones, it's just going to kind of mess you up. But for the good ones, it's going to get you a lot farther. So that's what I found from long distance. So anyway, I'm dating T, and I am a happy man. I am having conversations with her like no one else. We totally get each other, and I'm finally thinking to myself, like, I'm dating now for 9. I was 28 at the time, so this is 2019. It's already January, February, a little bit of March. No, the whole March actually. We were dating, and I'm like, I found my person. This is crazy. When does this happen to people? You find your person, and I did. I decided that like we have to plan Pesach together. She was so down. Like, we're gonna go Pesach. We're gonna have an amazing time. We're already seeing each other for like 2.5 months at this point. Yeah, 2.5 months at this point. 2 months, and then 2.5 months. So, she's going to Florida to visit her grandmother. I'm booking a flight to Florida. I'm picking her up at the airport. This is all happening. This is all happening. 8 years in it, at that point. A lot longer if you count in the fact that I really wanted to meet somebody. I really wanted to be with somebody. Of course, if you're following the timeline, unfortunately, I don't want to get too much into it, but this was this is when Corona kind of popped up, and T was supposed to come in, I think 3 or 4 days before, right after the lockdown. She was supposed to come in. So the lockdown happened 3 days before, 4 days before she came in. She was supposed to come in, and that was it. I instantly knew this was going to be a big problem. Always thinking the worst. And we tried so hard. I tried so hard to keep that relationship together, but 100% on Zoom is really tough. And what makes it really crazier is that, like, literally the world is coming to an end. And that's when, shiz hit the ceiling, as they say. When it rains, it pours. I got furloughed. She got furloughed. I had to move back to my parents' house. She had to move back to her parents' house. I had Corona. I got Corona early. And to make things worse, she had not to do with COVID or anything, but she had a family, an illness in the family that spurred up. And we were not doing well. We literally, all the energy we had for each other, we needed to put into ourselves to, like, save ourselves. Like, the world is coming to an end. And when you're in person, when you're dating in person, here's like the biggest disadvantage. this is just the only disadvantage I could probably even think of, is that, you know, when you're in a crisis, you need to be physically in there. You have to be there for the other person, physically in person. And I was not able to do that. And it ripped me apart. It tore me apart. She was not able to do that. I know it ripped her apart. And it tore her apart. So what we decided to do was I pushed for a break. I pushed for a break. I didn't know how to articulate it at the time, but I pushed her, and I don't think I didn't articulate things well at the time because, I just decided to get into therapy, and I wanted to marry this girl. I was going to do whatever I could, and that was the best thing I knew I can do. And, to me, I saw it as a break, but to her, obviously, this was like breaking up. So I was very, very hurt. I think subconsciously, like I was a mess because of obviously what happened. Got furloughed. I got COVID. I lost my apartment, and I'm just a wreck now. And now I don't have tea in my life, but it was becoming. I felt so guilty that I couldn't be there for her because she was in Israel. There was a lockdown. If I could drive there, I would have drove. I would have drove 6 hours. I would have drove 20 hours. I would have hiked, but I couldn't get in because it was going to Israel. There was a ban in the Middle East. There was a ban in Europe. You could not get in. My intentions at the time were to take a break, and I see that a lot in long-distance relationships where you could take a break. You can take a break. So I persevered. I got through life at that point, just barely. I came, thank God I recovered from COVID. At the time I was like, oh my God, you recovered from COVID. But, now everyone does. So this is now like, I'd say a month after we ended, a month after I initiated a breakup, or like at least a pause. I reach out to T, and I'm like, here I am, I'm alive, I'm back. I want to get back together. And she's seeing someone, and I was devastated. And she's she's like, we can't talk to each other. Like, I'm seeing someone, and I was really hurt by you. So I figured, look, I'll cheer her on, which I meant it. I'm like, if this is the one, I hope it works out. But of course, I knew I was the one for her, and I still never got to spend that time with her. I think maybe we overdid it when we were dating, before. For those like 3 months, there was a lot of kissy emojis. She sent me pictures of a ring. We got very serious. We would spend, on Sundays, we would spend 9-10 hours together. Every night we would spend 3-4 hours on FaceTiming and WhatsApp. And when we were together. Like, it was some of the best memories I've ever had, being with T. At some point, I actually listened to the podcast, Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast, the episode on revisits. And I said, you know what? And actually, it was really good advice where let me message her role model, her mentor. And I'm going to message her mentor, and I'm going to tell the mentor, I'm going to tell everything. I think, what was her name? Mrs. Whatever. Well, let's call her Mrs. Doubtfire. I don't remember her name. So, like, Mrs. Doubtfire, I'm telling Mrs. Doubtfire, like, I'm like, hey, this is Isaac. I want to talk to you about, T. Okay, we got on the phone. I'm like, and I just let it out. I'm like, you understand? Like, I was ready to marry her. I couldn't wait for her to come in. I was crazy about her, and I give her the whole explanation, and she's like, okay, let me see what I could do for you. The next day, T calls me, and the second I heard her voice, I start crying. And I cried. I never cried in front of anybody. And I was tearing. And I said, T, you're my best friend. You are my best friend. And I treated you like garbage. And I left you. And I don't care how irrational or rational it sounds. I take responsibility. I screwed it up. And we really were able to talk to each other. So we decided at that point, mostly her, that look, she now, after breaking up, after us, having been broken up, and there's a lockdown and there's a quarantine and there's like literally the world was coming to an end, she really saw herself not moving to America, which when we were dating, she was going to move here. No questions asked. And I was afraid to go to Israel. That's a big reason why I went to therapy. And I was able to get the help to understand that I don't care, I got myself to a place like, I don't care where I am. I need to be with her. I need to be with her. And I got myself in a long distance relationship. You're going to have a scenario where someone's going to have to move. Someone's going to have to give it all up for the other. Don't look at it like that. I'm starting my life for you because I love you and because I want to be there. And so T and I, we I think at the time, I think she thought, okay, this, journey's come to an end. We fortunately left off on amicable terms. We left off on good terms. So this is last summer. About a year ago, I decided, this is like a few weeks after I spoke to her, I'm like, I'm going to Israel. I'm going to Israel. And I tried getting in. I applied to the consulate. I applied to the ministry. I sent in my cousins as, my first degree family. Didn't work. I sent in my business. It couldn't work. I was literally like trying to bribe yeshivas, like, give me a student visa. I wrote a check for a few $100s already, and I was ready to sign something for $4,000. Like, this was unbelievable. Like, I never dedicated myself so much to something, and it showed me how real I felt about T. At some point last year, I started slipping into T's DMs, and now understand, like, we're separate, like, we're not together for a few months. There wasn't a day that didn't go by, and I finally decide, like, let me, what, I'm gonna like slip into her DMs again. I want to see how she's doing. And I slipped in, and it was weird. Like, I was so welcomed. I felt so good, and we just hit it off again. And before I didn't want to tell her, like, I didn't want to not like mislead her, but I didn't want to like give her false hope. Exactly. I didn't want to give her false hope. So, but at this point, I'm like, I don't care. I want to tell her, like, this is the girl I'm gonna marry. And I told her, I'm like, T, I've spent money, I spent time, I've spent night and day trying to get into Israel. I can't. This was like before the vaccine. So remember how people, like, you literally couldn't get in even if you had a first degree relative. And I remember T's voice note back to me. She's like, "Oh my God, Isaac, I don't know what to say." I'd always cherish that. And we were back at it. And yeah, I think 4 or 5 weeks. I don't have the messages, unfortunately. I don't have the messages anymore. You'll find out what happened. I can't tell you how much time. 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks maybe. Might have even been close to 2 months. We got back together. And I was happy. I was full again. I was a person. unfortunately, some things turned, and I went from, doing well with T and she doing well with me to things turning on us. My job that I was furloughed from during Corona told me I wasn't welcome back. I had a gas leak in my apartment. I had to move out. I was literally sleeping on a friend's couch. I can't make this up. It's I fell in shul, so like I sprained my leg. I sprained my ankle. I think this was already like Sukkot. Yeah, this was Sukkot, and I'm not doing well. From all this, like you just like you lose your job, you lose your apartment. This is like, oh my God, same formula. And I knew at that point, I needed T. I really needed her. And I started asking her to come back, to come to America. I told her I will pay. I told her I want to be with you. Like, this is tough. Like, we're Zooming now. Like, we're Zooming. We haven't seen each other in freaking, since we haven't seen each other in like, what is this? This is September. So we haven't seen each other in 9 months. This is crazy. And you pick up, there's a How I Met Your Mother episode where they were discussing Ted and Victoria, and you pick up right where you left off. And we picked right back up. Like, she stumbled into my world. I think it was December of 2019. I'm not so sure. I don't have my, December. And here it is. It's almost December now. This is 2 years ago, and God was throwing us these curveballs, and I'm like, help me out here. Anyway, I basically lost my job. I'm out of my apartment. I rolled my ankle, and to make things worse, I get bronchitis again. And I feel like I did the wrong thing in pressuring T to come to America, which she could have because of the citizenship. She was American. She grew up in New Jersey. But like I should have had more empathy. Like, I'm sure she was scared. I'm sure she was worried. We also got into a fight about the vaccine, and we should have done a virtual therapy session. That's for sure. Premarital counseling, like every married person tells you. I wish I did that. And all of a sudden we're in a fight, and I regret everything. The stupidest things we've like, like she was pro the vaccine. I was against it. I don't care. Just jab me. Whatever else we were fighting about. I don't care. Like, it's nothing now, because it's more important to be with the right person. While this is going on and I feel separate, as you remember, I was doing a lot of podcasting, and all of a sudden, a lot of people were home during Corona, and they got those, they got very into the podcast. Hence, we have a lot, we have thousands and thousands, 5,000-6,000 people listening to this. And I get a call from a girl who I used to date before T, right before I met her. And she's like, "Hey, Isaac, it's B. Her name's B. I don't know. Let's call it. It's Bianca. There you go. Let's see. Hey, Isaac, it's Bianca. I listened to your podcast. I never saw the side of you. I want to go out again." I'm like, "Yo, like, lady, I'm getting married, man. Man, I'm getting married, lady. Like, what?" I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." So I'm like telling her what's going on, and because I'm like dying inside. I can't see I can't be with the person I love. I'm separated. We left off on a good note, like, be well, whatever, and I'm just like, hey, I'm seeing T. I think like 2 minutes after that, my favorite shotgun calls up, Jamie. Jamie calls me up. "Oh my God, I just got off the phone with Bianca. You got to go out with her. She's the one." And yeah, like for the next like 2 hours, we're having linguistic joust between me professing my love for T and Jamie kind of like trying to talk me into going out with Bianca. And it's tough because, long distance relationships, people just don't get it. They don't understand that you can fall in love. We used to call T and I used to call each other pen pals. You're my pen pal, T. You never not be. And like that's how you really get to know someone in such a special way, a unique way, a deep way, a very deep way. And we had that. So I'm fighting off Bianca and Jamie now, and I'm like just, and I miss T, and my life is like falling apart. And there's spikes in COVID again. And, remember, I also have bronchitis now. So, like, I'm really, like, totally out of it. Like, T is trying to FaceTime me and call me, and I'm just out, drugged up from NyQuil. She's trying to text me, and I'm like, I'm at the doctor, I got myself on some, they gave me some hydroxychloroquine thing. That was pretty good. But it worked. It was just, I still was battling this bronchitis. I thought it was COVID, by the way. Again, but it wasn't. It was negative. Anyway, here I am. And it's tough to say, but I called up T. We got into a fight. And what I told T, and what I hope she understands, she unfortunately won't understand, is like I told her, T, when we were fighting, I'm like, please come in, please. I need to be with you. I need to see you. Like, please. I felt alone. I felt like I was abandoned. And I kind of off the cuff was like, well, why don't I just go out with Bianca? She's here. She wants to go out with me. And that was it. All T heard was, I'm leaving you for, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. But unfortunately, like, it, and I hurt her. And I take responsibility either way. I do take responsibility, and I effed up. I totally effed up. I'm living with that regret every day of my life. And I tried moving on from it at the time. So this is last year. This is right before the election. So this is like November. Or this is like October 31st, November 1st, something like that. And I'm moving on. The election happens. Like damn. I just can't win. I really just can't win that. I pull myself together. And I decide to go out with, Bianca. We went out for a little bit and whatever. She was never T. Here I am now. It's like January. It's this past January 2021. It's December. It's right now late November 2021. Now it's January. Okay. And in January, I had to make a decision. I'm like literally limping out of a very effed up year. A year of struggle, a year of torture. I know everyone can relate. And if you can't relate, what the hell is wrong with you? So what I decide to do, I was in a mourning period. I'm like, talking to a professional. I'm talking to my friends. I'm just talking it out. You got to just talk it out. Sopranos, just talk it out. And I realized for the betterment of myself, for the betterment of T, I'm going to work off of the most recent development in Israel, which was they're not opening till July. Okay. And it was a crazy time. I was able to put it aside. I moved on. I did some other projects. I got bumped up at work. I found that by the way, I got rehired at another job. And thank God, like I pulled myself together. All of a sudden, I'll fast forward. It was this past, June, where I start getting into TikTok. People can follow me there, and all of a sudden, I stumble upon T, and I'm like, oh my God, T, what are you like? This is crazy. I follow her, and I like her video, and I don't remember if I said hi. Unfortunately, I can't remember because I was blocked literally 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds. And I was brokenhearted. My I immediately, like, I got saddened down because I think everything caught up to me, and I'm like, oh my God, like, T hates me. T is hurt by me, and I effed up. I decide right away, I'm going into my other Instagram accounts, like trying to message her, and she's blocking me. And I'm like, oh my, this is really bad. Like, this is really bad. If I could have gone on a plane to Israel that night, I would have. I tried for such a long time. And these long distance things, this is what happens in the end, unfortunately. Like, it's not always a fairy tale ending. So I messaged T like a 10-minute, maybe 12 minute voice note. I'm apologizing. I'm like, I'm an asshole. I never gave you closure. I never let anything. I'm like, what was I thinking? I wanted to marry you. I told you I loved you. I loved her. And I never I never said the L word to any girl before. So I told her how I felt. I told her what a schmuck I was, and I just tried reminding her of the good times. Like, we were, we made magic, and I was yours and you were mine, and there was no response. There was no response. I was able to message her these things on my work phone. I was blocked everywhere else: WhatsApp, Instagram, text. I start my hunt again. So I'm applying now to Israel another 3 times. I get denied. I'm spending money. I'm spending a lot of time. I'm getting in trouble at work for like filling out these forms and giving, because you can only call during the day. You can't call at night. Otherwise you have to, what the time changes. And finally someone tells me about someone I could use. So I'm about to write a $4,000 check to this guy to get me in for Sukkot. I remember telling God, I'm like, Hashem, I have no Sukkot plans. I'm going to Eretz. You're opening it up, and you better make it happen. And still, a year and 7 months at this point, 8 months, a year and 8 months, I was not able to go to Israel. One day, fortunately, the borders open. And Israel made the announcement, as most of you remember, November 1st, that they were opening. And it was, mid-October, and I booked that flight. And I can't tell you how crazy it was. I was literally the first person in the entire world to get into Israel without the green card initiated since the lockdown. So I'm literally, like, I booked the first flight out of JFK, and I am, like, trying to get in. They put me on the side. There are problems. Supervisor after supervisor. Like, I'm at the airport 4 hours early. Finally, I'm like literally boarding, 20 minutes before the flight. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna get to TSA. Freaking this lady behind me drops on the floor from a seizure. Cops want to me to make a statement. I'm like crying to them. I can't. I gotta get to there. I finally get in there. I finally get to the plane. 150 Chabad shluchim. I love my brothers and sisters in Chabad, and they join me. They join me on the flight. They're coming back from a Lubavitch convention, and I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm going to Israel. I'm finally here. At this point, I am feeling it. I get, after these PCR tests, and I literally had PCR tests coming out of my tuchus at this point. I'm finally in the cab. I get to my cousin's house. I put my stuff down. I couldn't even shower. I'm like sitting in goo from, a freaking 12-hour whatever flight. And I'm like, I have to call T. I'm like, I can't. I know at this point I can't just show up. And guys, you have to understand, I haven't seen her in a year and 9 months. A year and 9 months, 10 months or something, right? 10 months. It's a year and 10 months. Guys, it's a year and 10 months. I haven't seen her. And my cousins helped me get myself together, and I wrote something from the heart. But I knew it'd be a little too creepy if I just show up at her house. I didn't know where she lives, but guys, like, imagine, like, she's right there. She's 5 blocks, and I would have scoured every block. But I know at this point, like, I know that she was very upset. She was 100% warranted to, and she was heartbroken by, maybe, and as was, and I literally can only get down on my knees and just beg. I'm sorry, like. COVID, the world came to an end, and I take full responsibility. I call her up, and the conversation is it's private. It's between T and I. I don't want to go into too much details, but I don't think I was given a fair chance at all. I might have deserved it, but if she only knew that since the day we met, I never stopped thinking about her, and she was my person, and I wanted to live every day of my life being her best friend, being at peace because she was in my life, and I wanted to marry her. And here I am now, 30. T was 25 when we met. I was 28. We were 3 years apart. And this a year and 11 month journey, came to an end. I didn't even get a chance to see her. She was too scarred. She was too hurt, and I get it. I get it. Long distance relationships are a killer. And they could also be the best damn thing you'd ever experience. T, I'm sorry, if you're listening to this, for everyone else out there, I'm back in Shidduchim. I'm back. Here I am. I'm back in Shidduchim. I'm ready to move on. I wished T a good life, and I told her, I'm like, I'm always here for you. Like, I get how Hashem feels now. I get how Kadosh Baruch Hu feels now. People walk out on him and every comparison in between. Sephardi, Ashkenaz, America, Israel, a liberal, conservative, whatever, every single one, nuance. I get how Hashem feels when his child leaves him. And I really felt like I was dead to T. And, there's, that's it. You screw up, you screw up. So I am moving on. I am pulling myself out of it. Welcome to the new world. IJ's here, back, ready to mingle. And a year and 11 months, I get to close this chapter. I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's next. For the past year and 11 months, I was most of the time, on and off, but most of the time, like, thinking I'm going to marry this girl, so I never had to worry about this. But I've been out with girls in between then. I have been out with a lot of girls in between them. Not a lot I got, but like a good amount. Some things worked, some things didn't work, because I tried to move on. So it's the story, There and Back Again, by Isaac Baggins. No, Isaac Baggins, Bilbo. All I could say is, long distance is good. It works. My tell-all. And, two guys, 2.5 years ago, right? 2.5 years ago, we start this podcast. And as they said in the Moulin Rouge, this guy right here, I got a lot more than I bargained for. I never thought I would actually fall in love. Infatuation, whatever you want to say. Don't bitter it. Don't malign it. Don't corrupt it. It's an amazing thing. And here I am. It's nice to know that I did it and I'm able to do it. And thanks for letting me share. So it's been a nice cordial conversation. As I usually finish off, happy face, smiley face, silly face. This is Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast.
Are you a newlywed couple or a parent of a newlywed couple? Well, you may have just found your shidduch, but there's another shidduch that our friend Broker Ben can make for you, and that's for your new home. Broker Ben sells houses, rents apartments throughout the tri-state area. He specializes in the 5 towns and Crown Heights. If you need a place to stay for short-term, long-term, to live, and create a house that can build future shidduchim, reach out to Broker Ben at 516-491-9593, or you can find him on Instagram at the Broker Ben on Instagram.
Alchi's Media Network.